Good morning, everybody. Welcome all of you to our online classroom. Today, our topic is bone joints. In my last class, I mentioned you about bone joints. Today, we shall discuss different types of bone joints and their example. Look at the board. Different types of bone joints depending upon the structure of bone joints and capability of a movement. Bone joints have been classified mainly into three types. They are immovable joint or fibrous joint. Second, slightly or partly movable joints or cartilaginous joint, and movable joint or synovial joint. Now, what is immovable joint? Example, bones of skull. Immovable means not movable. Here, look at immovable joint skull. These are the bones of skull. This is frontal bone, this is parietal bone, these two bones are parietal bones, and this is occipital bones. Now, these bones are connected with each other through fibrous tissue. These are called sutures. Bones are firmly connected with each other, so they are immovable. Now, second, slightly or partly movable joint, or this is called cartilaginous joint also. Example, vertebrae of vertebral column. Look at this figure 2. Slightly movable joint, vertebral column. This is a vertebral column. This is vertebral column. Vertebral column is made up of vertebra, singular number, one vertebra, one vertebra, one vertebra. We learned earlier about vertebral column. So here, see, these vertebra and these vertebra are connected with a cartilaginous disc. Cartilaginous disc. This is cartilaginous disc. Cartilaginous disc. These cartilaginous discs allow the vertebrae slight movement. So, this is the example of slightly or partly movable joint. Then, movable joint or synovial joint. There are so many examples. Hip joint, shoulder joint, elbow joint, hip joint, knee joint. These are all the example of movable joint. And look at this figure 3. Here a movable joint or synovial joint. This is one bone and this is one bone. These two bones are connected here. This is synovial space. Here we find a fluid called synovial fluid. Here these two bones are connected. This is ligament. We studied earlier, this is ligament. And peculiarity of this joint is that the bones of this joint is freely movable. So this is called movable joint, or example, shoulder joint, elbow joint, hip joint, knee joint, etc., etc. Different types of movable joint. What is joint movement? It is completely under the control of brain. Brain sends signal to muscles via or through nerves. After receiving signals, muscles contract and smaller in size, become small in size. This leads to the movement of adjacent bone of bone joints. This is called joint movement. There are different types of movable joint. Number 1, here figure 1, ball and socket joint. This is the picture. Look at here, round head of a bone comes in contact with the cup-like groove of another bone. This type of bone joint is called ball and socket joint. This type of joint allows or permits to move the bones in all directions. So it is called multi-axial joint. Example, shoulder bone, shoulder joint, hip joint. Next, this is hinge joint. What is a hinge joint? See here, rounded end of a bone lies rest on concave like groove of another bone. This is called hinge. This type of joint is called hinge joint. It allows or permits the participating bones to move in one direction only, like hinge. Example, knee joint and elbow joint. We can move these two arms in one direction only. So this is hinge joint. Now come to the third point, figure 3, pivot joint. See here, the ring-like structure or circular structure of one bone surrounds or rests on pivot-like structure of another bone. This type of joint is called pivot joint. As a result, one bone can move or can rotate, whereas another bone, here this bone remains stationary. We find this type of joint here, joint between atlas and axis vertebra. See here, atlas is our first bone, first vertebrae, and axis is a second vertebra. Joint between atlas and axis vertebrae is example of pivot joint. See, we can move our head likewise. We can move our head 180 degree, right side and left side. This occurs due to the point that our skull is attached with atlas, and atlas surrounds or rests on pivot of axis vertebra or axis bone, so we can move our head. And now look at this figure 4, saddle joint. This is one type of poorly developed ball and socket joint. Concave groove of one bone lies at right angle to another concave groove, and we find this type of joint in case of thumb joint. As a result, we can move our thumb inward, outward, front, back. So these are the different types of movable joint. This is ball and socket joint. Here the femur bone is attached with pelvic girdle or hip bone. The head of the femur lies in acetabulum cavity of pelvic girdle. This is pivot joint, the joint between atlas and axis vertebrae. Atlas is the first vertebra. Skull is attached with atlas, and atlas is connected with axis vertebra through pivot joint, so we can move our skull. This is hinge joint, image of elbow joint, where humerus is attached with ulna. This is saddle joint. It is seen between metacarpal of thumb and corresponding carpals. Bones are clearly seen here. Muscles. Look at the pictures above and name the activities shown above. See here, in case of figure 1, he is lifting or pulling weight. In case of figure 2, he is folding his hand. In case of figure 3, he is throwing ball, and in case of figure 4, heart pumping blood. Now, which organs
of the body helps in doing the activities shown above. You will get here some options such as bone, muscle, ligament and tendon. Obviously, correct option is muscle. The contraction and expansion of the muscle helps an animal to move its limbs. Now try to know the characteristics muscles. This is also a peculiar feature of muscle, that is, contraction and expansion of the muscle helps an animal to move its limbs. Muscles do the work of pulling, okay, and when muscles work, their length decreases. It is one of the important point. Where have you seen muscles? Right below in your body. Actually, it should be your response. Now I am responding. In your hand, in your leg, in your belly, you will find muscles. In your friend's body, in case of neck, thigh, shoulder, you will get muscles. In the body of an animal, you will get muscles at leg, wing and tail. In food item, you will find muscles in lamb rib, at shanks of goat, and in case of chicken breast, you will find muscles. Let us see what are the functions of the muscles and how do they do it. Ask your friend to stand with hands to his sides. Ask him to fold his hand from the elbow as in picture. Here is the picture. Now place your palm on the part pointed with the arrow as shown in the picture here. What you are feeling in muscle? If you touch here, if you keep your palm here, you feel stiffness. Okay. Press the muscle. How do you feel? You will feel stiffness. Try to feel the muscle. Tell your friend to fold his elbow very slowly. Try to feel the muscle again. Press the muscle again. How do you feel? Ask your friend to lower his arm gradually and then fold it again. Feel the muscle and try to understand whether the muscle is increasing or decreasing in length and width. Length of the muscle is decreased or increased. Width of the muscle is decreased or increased. When muscles work, then length of the muscle decreases. When muscle take rest, then length of the muscle is increased. Next, now complete the following chart with the correct words. Column 1, shape of muscle. Column 2, when arm is raised, some muscles. Function while others rest. Column 3, when arm is lowered, these muscles work while other rest. Now, in case of length of working muscle, it decreases when arm is raised, and when arm is lowered, the length of the working muscle increases. Width of working muscle, when arm is raised, width increased, and when arm is lowered, width of working muscle decreases. Stiffness of working muscle, when arm is raised, it is increased, and stiffness of working muscle, when arm is lowered, it decreases. So, what work is the muscle doing? Movement. What are the changes taking place in the muscle while it is doing work? We can say that number 1, length decreases. Number 2, width increases. Number 3, stiffness increases. Do you follow? What are the changes taking place when the muscles are at rest? Just reverse these points. Here length decreases, here length increases. Here width increases, here width decreases. Here stiffness increases, here stiffness decreases. So, this is how muscles work. How do muscles help to pull up the hand? Fold your hand and place your finger on both sides of your elbow. The thread-like part that you feel is called tendon, and it joins the muscles with the bones. I told you earlier, what is a tendon or function of the tendon? Tendon connects muscle with the bone. The muscle uses the tendon to pull the bone. Now look at here. This is also a table. First column, location of muscle. Second, whether it works all the time. When does it work? Whether you can make it work. First, muscles of the hand. Answer is no. When does it work? To do work. Whether you can make it work? Yes. That is voluntary. Intestinal muscle, whether it works all the time. Here it is written yes. Actually the answer is no. Answer is no. Second column, when does it work? At the time of movement of food takes place. When movement of food takes place, then intestinal muscles work. Whether you can make it work? No. Cardiac muscle, whether it works all the time? Yes, all the time it works. When it works? During the time of blood pumping. Whether you can make it work? No. It is not voluntary, involuntary. Number 4, muscles of leg, whether it works all the time? No. When does it work? At the time of movement it works. Whether you can make it work? Yes, as it is voluntary muscles. Muscles of the hand are known as skeletal muscle. Why are they termed so? Answer: attached to bone. So, what is skeletal muscle? Skeletal muscle is always attached to bone, and skeletal muscle is also striated muscle, and skeletal muscle is voluntary muscle. Muscle of the stomach are known as visceral muscle. Viscera means internal organs, that is, organs located inside the chest and abdomen. Why is it named so? It is named so because it is attached to internal organ. Now, visceral muscle is non-striated muscle and it is involuntary muscle. Muscles of the heart are known as cardiac muscle. What are the features of cardiac muscle? Number one, it is only attached to heart. Muscle is striated, that is, cardiac muscle is striated, and myoglobin, a type of protein, is present in cardiac muscle. Which muscles are used to do the following jobs? Name of job, nature of muscle, whether it is skeletal muscle or visceral muscle or cardiac muscle. Expansion and contraction of the lungs due to intercostal muscle and diaphragm, visceral muscle. Movement of the jaw, skeletal muscle. Movement of food through alimentary canal, visceral muscle. Smooth muscle, involuntary muscle. Movement of blood through blood vessel, visceral muscle. Movement of tongue, voluntary muscle, skeletal muscle. Contraction and expansion of heart, cardiac muscle, that is involuntary muscle. Cardiac muscle is also striated muscle. Opening and closing of eyes, skeletal muscle, voluntary muscle. Using pickaxe, skeletal muscle, striated muscle, voluntary muscle. Switching a light on and turning it off, skeletal muscle. Talking, skeletal muscle. Do you know the process of talking? Actually, at the time of talking, muscles of tongue, lip, and jaw are used to produce vibration at a vocal cord. Vocal cord is vibrated, and as a result of vibration of vocal cord is transformed into words. Okay, do you follow? Climbing up mountain, skeletal muscle. Swimming, skeletal muscle. Now, problems of the muscle. 1. Onima's sister does not have sense down the waist since birth. Her legs are very slender. This is a problem of muscle. Chiranjit spends long hours in front of his computer. Recently, he has been having back and neck pains. This is due to the muscle problem. Ashit Babu has trouble with his eye movements. His leg and hand muscles are weak. He is becoming very frail and can hardly walk. This is also a muscle problem. So, these are some of muscle problems and muscles that one can have. So this is all about muscles.